All right, let's go back to where we are. Okay, now this particular Torah, I'm going to go ahead and explain to you how we're going to do it. And this time, I want you all extremely engaged, which means by this is that I'm going to tell you how we're going to be learning this particular Torah. And then I'm going to actually give you some things to be looking at on your own during the course of the coming week. And then when we come back, we'll go over this material again, because what we want to make sure we do is to get through the Torah in its entirety. It's not a very, very long one. However, it's very action-packed. It's dense with exceptional important meaning. Okay, not that one is more important than the other, but when you come to be talking about Yiras Shamayim, okay, it's more important than that. I mean, what else is more important than the idea of Yiras Shamayim? And who better to teach us Yiras Shamayim than Rav Nachman? That is, in fact, the reality. So what we're going to do like this. We're going to read through the first half of this Torah somewhat rapidly, and I'm going to highlight a few points for us to look at. And then what we'll do is next week, in Yirtzeh Hashem, we'll come back and we'll go over the same reading, and we'll go into it a little bit more deeply. Now, again, the name of this particular Torah is, it's called Vatemches Kohanim B'Kodesh. Okay, from Shemos, you shall be a kingdom of priests in the holy nation. These are the mishpatim which you shall place in front of them. Kodesh Baruch Hu telling Moshe Rabbeinu that these are what you shall place in front of them. Okay, good. These are the words which you should put in front of them. You should speak to them, and so on and so forth. Now, Rav Nachman says this in Os Aleph, in Aleph 1, paragraph 1. Mi shirotza litom tam or haganuz, the one who is to taste, again, the flavor of the hidden light, the or haganuz. What is the or haganuz? Hainu odos haTorah, she is galil osid, which are the secrets of the Torah, which will be revealed in the future. In order to be able to taste this flavor of the hidden light, we don't know exactly what the hidden light actually is. We say you could find it that was there at the time of the during the Sheshes Mei Bereshis, during the 7 days of creation. Really, you're talking about something that has really nothing to do with light. You know, that is for sure. We know that the sun was created on the 4th day, so light, as we know it, comes into existence on the 4th day. But beforehand, there seems to be this light as well, this or, and this light gets hidden. Okay, Rav Nachman points out over in post number 3, right over here. Post number 3, note number 3, is that this light of creation was so bright that one could see from one end of the world to the other, but God understood that man would use it improperly, and as a result, it was hidden away. And where did God hide this light? It says, it's the Zohar goes and tells, or Haganuz is hidden. This hidden light is in the letter Vav. Now, the letter Vav, is an interesting letter because it always signifies Torah. The reason why it signifies Torah is because the Luchot, the tablets, are they are 6 by 6 tefachim. They are 6 by 6. They're 6 by this, like square. They're not the way that we saw it on Charlton Heston, holding them and throwing whatever, but they're kind of square. There were certain pieces 6 by 6. That's always has the connotation of the vav, Okay, the vav has that idea, which is very interesting. Is that the or haganuz is hidden in the letter Vav. It's hidden in the letter Vav, which basically means it's hidden within the Torah. The concept of this being, of course, is that the Torah and its components, the letters of the Torah, the words, the letters, the actual parts and components of the letters are comprised of incredible depth, to the point that the Or HaGanuz is actually embedded within the letters of the Torah, within the Torah itself. Okay, and we're talking here about what we refer to as the primordial Torah. We're not talking about necessarily the same Torah we actually have in our possession. Having said that, after many contractions and many different types of formattings, whatever, it comes down to us in the Torah that we have as we know today. But what we're talking about here is this Or HaGanuz, this light, which is the primordial Torah, the Torah Keduma, okay, which is effectively, for lack of a better word, the blueprint of everything that exists within creation. It is, as it were, all of creation itself, and then becomes effectively transferred in the course of many iteration into what becomes the Torah that we have right now. So the Torah that we have is imbued, okay, with a depth of meaning that is of an exceptional of creation at the very is actually hidden within there, and that is the secrets of the Torah. Now it's very interesting, as you will see right off the bat. You see over here the word or. The word or in Hebrew, of course, is light. Or is Aleph Vav Resh. Aleph Vav Resh. Aleph Vav Resh. If you take the gematria of that, you know what the gematria is. The gematria is the numerical value of them. All the letters of the Hebrew alphabet have a numerical value. Aleph, for example, is 1. The letter of the word or is 6. And then Resh at the end, the last letter of the word or, is 200. So that's 1 plus 6 plus 200 comes out to be 207. 207 is the same in Hebrew as the word Roz. Roz, Resh, Zion. You know what the word Resh Zion means? What does the word Resh Zion mean? Anybody know? Anybody know what Resh Zion means? Is everybody there? First of all, most importantly, what is Resh Zion Hebrew? Roz. Roz means a secret. It means a secret. That's what the word or, in terms of its numerical value, the gematria is the same 207 as the word Roz, which means secret. Now, I can't tell whether or not this chat is working at all. Is this chat working? Could somebody please just give me a message so I know you're all out? Ah, there it is. Okay, good. But it's gone quiet for a while, and I'm always terribly, I'm petrified about spending an entire hour talking to myself because something was not working, whatever. It's happened before, so we don't want to do it. Anyway, so the point of the matter is, right at the very, very beginning, we see something over. It's very interesting. Is the word, this Or HaGanuz, or, again, which has the same numerical value as the word Roz, which basically is the secret. And of course, what in fact is the Or HaGanuz? Those are the Sodot HaTorah. Those are the secret of the Torah, which are in fact embedded it becomes embedded in the letters, of the Torah, which ultimately will be revealed la'asid in the future. But in order to taste, as he says, and experience this Or HaGanuz, which is possible, which is an interesting idea if you're thinking about it. The Or HaGanuz, that which is buried, that which is within the Sodot HaTorah, which is this primordial light that is employed, that's used within the creation of the universe. Okay, one has the capability of actually experiencing that. One has the capability of actually, as it were, transporting himself back to the very, very, very beginnings of time. Or is that what it means at all? Okay, I'm just going ahead and raising that. Is that what we're saying right now? Or is this or haganuz, the light of creation, the hidden light of creation, something which of course that is always there, as are the secrets that are within the Torah that will be revealed. Certainly we have the capability of being able, he says, to experience this, to taste them in some form or another. However, in order to be able to do that, Rav Nachman says, tzorech lahalot midas hayir l'shorsha. One must elevate the midas, this aspect, this attribute, this quality of yira, of fear, a fear of God, back to its root, the means of being able to experience this Or Haganuz is by means of elevating the midah of yira, of fear, back to its root. So of course, this lesson is going to be about yiras Hashem, and that's really what we're going to be getting to, right now. All of these things are difficult to understand at a particular stage. We don't know a lot of these ideas and these concepts already. We don't even know exactly what yira is, to be absolutely sure. Sure, you would say, what is yiras Hashem? One might go ahead and give an explanation for it, but I suppose that it's better if we would actually allow Rav Nachman, to be able to. But before we do that, I want to be able to ask you, and of course we should ask ourselves, since we're going to be talking about yiras Hashem, fear of God. Ostensibly, we know what that means. Okay, if we really know what it means, really know whether or not we actually possess it, because is it something that you have? Is it a quality? Is it a facility, an ability? Is it some type of state of mind? Whatever you want to say. Nevertheless, we have to ask ourselves, the question here. Now, it's very, very clear that intellectually one is able to prove to oneself, okay, that there is God exists. Okay, good. I'm not going to go into that whole thing. It's not really the point. The philosophers have gone ahead and dealt with this. That's not what we're dealing. We're not philosophers. That's not what we're working with. The existence of God, the proof for the existence of God. That's not what this is at all. It's not what this is at all. It's just fear of God. Fear of God is way, way, way beyond all of this idea. The question is that whether or not we know what it is, we possess, whether we know, anything about it, whether it comes and it goes, and that's all there is to it. Now, one say, all right, sure, I fear God. What is it I'm fearing? What I'm afraid of? You say that you fear God. First thing that might come into your mind is, afraid of being punished for things that I do. Yeah, I'm, God's. I may be not so sure about God, but one thing is that I don't want to mess around with is the idea of being punished for something. So I got to be careful, be on my toes a little bit. So that's certainly the idea. The notion of punishment, okay, is something that grabs our attention. That is for sure the case. We're afraid. We're afraid of the divine in terms of the possibility of retribution, of judgment, of justice, or something of that sort being meted out for things that we have done wrong. So we may call that some type of a fear of God. Do we have that? Yeah, I would say that for the most part, most people would say, even if they may not be the greatest tzaddikim in the world, that they're afraid of the possibility of punishment. That's for sure. And certainly in a very, very dire straits, dire circumstances in their lives, for whatever, in fact, because of that, the calamitous situation, certainly call out to God or reach out to God, which is this notion of being afraid of things that are going on in their lives or whatever the case may be. But then there's another thing. There's a notion of being aware of the wondrousness of God, and being happy and thankful for the things that we believe that God gives us. And that certainly is the recognition of this goodness over here, is also a notion of Yirat Hashem, a recognition of God. So certainly the idea of fear of God is not just a question of punishment or retribution or judgment that may be given out to us, certainly not by any stretch of the imagination. But I think that ultimately speaking, it goes far, far, far deeper than that. And that is the following. Rav Nachman asks the question, and certainly makes the point later on in Likutei Moharan, is like this. He says, ask yourself this at this point, and it's like this. I'm going to go ahead and combine it with something else. Many shuls in many places, Bate Knesiyot, you'll see that it's written up above, have the different types of things. I place God in front of me continuously, or it might say Da Lifnei Mi Ata Omeid, in front of whom, know in front of whom you stand. Okay, now that's the point over here. Know in front of whom you stand. Notice how it says no. No. Okay, good. Rav Nachman asked this question, later on the Likutei Moharan, as I was just saying. If you could imagine for 1 second, if you really, really, really knew that God, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, was here, right with you, right this minute, was right there in front of you, was there in front of your desk as you stand, or was right there in that shul when you were davening, do you think that it would change your davening? Do you think that it would change the entire format of your da'as, of your awareness and consciousness and knowledge? Okay, think about that for a second. Yes, we know that God exists. Yes, we know that God is the provider. We know that God can punish us, chas v'shalom. All of those things we do know. But the question is much more basic than that. Do we really experience God? Do we experience God at all? Do we experience God from time to time? Do we have the awareness that God is with us, is here, is right, very much this? Just think how one's behavior would change, would be altered as a result of really knowing that God was right there, as opposed to intellectualizing and, of course, knowing that that's the reality, but really knew. If you really knew that was in fact the case, how would that change everything for you? And the answer, of course, is that it would. You couldn't even begin to calculate the way in which it would change our entire being. Everything would change. Everything. The way that we spoke would change. The way that we would daven would change. The way that we would conduct all of our affairs. Everything would change. It would change. We would be on fire. Our lives, our hearts, our souls, everything would be absolutely on fire because of that da'as, of that awareness, that consciousness of the divine, the experience of the divine that we have, because it then passes away from a piece of knowledge. It passes away from an intellectual apprehension, grasp, into something which is concrete, which is real. And that reality, that concrete reality, changes everything for us. And that is what Rav Nachman is going to be referring to, of course, as the das that's necessary in order to be able to have true Yirat Hashem. Well, what I'm going to say, Lee, is that all of it, Lee, right. But if you could, when you're engaged in your meditation, your bodhidut, whenever it is that one does it, and that's going to be a key element of this entire lesson, is this notion of hitbodedut, of the meditation, because the only way to be able to look at oneself and to ask these type of questions that we're asking. There's nothing more fundamental in terms of a question than that. How would everything change if you really knew that God were right here, this minute in front of you, as opposed to it being, an intellectual thought, but it would become something that becomes, as it were, almost, an empirical reality, a sensorily absorbed in your being, right in front of you. Like, I see this lampshade on this lamp right here. It's so real to me. I don't have to believe that it is here. I don't need any kind of logical syllogism in order to know that I see it. I can touch it, in fact. So I'm to know that reality is here. But what about God? What about God? What about reality? What about that? And that becomes what we're talking about over here. And that's going to become something that we will constantly in our lives, every day of our lives, every minute of our lives, for the rest of our lives, we'll have to be working on and trying to bring forth into an actual reality in front of us is this reality and this apprehension of divine, the Yiras Hashem, which is this fear of God, this recognition of God, this reality of God. I'm pushing this notion of Yiras Hashem, away from the idea of punishment and fear of punishment. Of course, there's certainly, that's part of Yiras Hashem, and on one level, it certainly is Yiras Hashem. But we're pushing this over into a notion of apprehending as a concrete reality, and how that reality changes everything about our being, about our lives. And it's a simple question. It's a simple question, but the reality of the answer is something that you have to think about. Put yourself into that situation when you have 5 minutes or 10 minutes, in your quiet meditation, we have to try to incorporate as part and parcel of our lives. Okay, it's essential. And that's going to be, again, at the root basis of how one acquires this Yiras Hashem. We're going to ask yourself that question, that reality. How would it change? How would it change? What would change? Okay, about me, what would change? And that reality is going to impact you. It's going to impact each one of us. We're going to realize how far away we are from the reality of that apprehension. Do we have that apprehension? All of us have that same issue. It's not something which we're going to quantify. That this one has it more than that one. I have it more than you or less than you. Whatever the case may be, this is something. Is a davar shemasur l'lev. It's something which has been passed over to the heart. In other words, it's something which is in the heart of each one of us, not something which we can calculate, not something which anybody is able to estimate and determine. Okay, so that's something that we have to have. Keep that question. We're going to come back and keep on asking that, and keep on referring to that particular question. Just think of how everything would change. Everything would change to be able to go outside, to go into the workplace, to go to your office, to come home, to be at your dinner table, to be talking on a telephone to whomever, to be interacting, okay, to by yourself in terms of what you do and what you think about and how you spend your time, all with the reality that a Kadosh Baruch Hu is right here with us. Sometimes that in and of itself jars us into a fear. You know, you say to yourself, I really wish that God would see what I've just done. You know, I myself am embarrassed of what I've just done. How much the more so in front of a Kadosh Baruch Hu. But that reality is the das, is the consciousness that we have to be able to develop to take with us and to deepen and to strengthen at all times. Okay, just a little bit of a background question. Let's go weiter. We're up to bet right over here. Let me just go ahead and scratch this thing right here, right over here. I enjoy this white. It's out the artist that lies hidden within me. Okay, bet. Okay, and with what? With what? What's the mechanism? What's the mechanism for elevating this fear? In other words, at the end of the day, what I have to do is I have to be fear back to its root. Where is its root? Rav Nachman's going to discuss that. And I have to have a mechanism. How do I elevate that fear? He says, that's the question right now. He says, Bechinas Mishpat. The Bechinas Mishpat is by means of the aspect of judgment, of Mishpat. Moshe Kosuv, as it says in the verse, Melech b'mishpat ya'amid aretz, through judgment, by means of judgment, ya'amid aretz, the king establishes, sustains the land, and he says the eretz hu b'chinas yira. There's in land, the eretz. He was talking about Eretz Yisrael. Was he talking about the earth? Was he talking about? Don't know here because we have to look at the psukim. That's part of what we have to do when we're studying Rav Nachman. Is we have to have a Tanakh with us. We need to have a Tanakh. Okay. One of the things that we know, we don't just passively absorb what Rav Nachman has to say. We learn. We have to learn it. We have to go out of our way to make an effort to delve into the words and the process that Rav Nachman puts us through in terms of understanding what he's saying. Because what Rav Nachman is a master writer in terms of taking an ideas and portraying them in many different types of ways. And as a result of taking an idea and words and layering them with meaning and expressing them in ways almost as a form of poetry, as it were, he imparts tremendous levels and depths of meaning into his writing. So with Rav Nachman, it's not just the question of what he is saying in these words. It's really what is within the words, underneath it, and the depths of the writing that he actually has. And for that, we have to learn how to learn what he's saying. There's an entire methodology for being able to get at this. So some of this that we want to do, and of course we want to be able to learn concrete things that we're able to integrate into our lives. That's of course extremely important, for us. What's the point of engaging in purely an intellectual exercise? That's surely not what we want to do. On the other hand, what we want to do is we want to be able to acquire skills at being able to know how to study a complex and profound thinker such as Rav Nachman as well. And Rav Nachman takes his words and he paints. He literally paints, and he uses oftentimes the psukim and the contexts of Tanakh in order to be able to convey a mood, an idea, a turn, a depth of thing that just simply words written in prose form do not have the capability of expressing. Okay, and that's a very, very important thing. Is that not only is Rav Nachman a great Torah scholar, but he's also a tremendous writer, tremendous artist. It's the capability of conveying to us great levels of meaning, depths of meaning within the way that he expresses it. Right here in this first paragraph, Rav Nachman, you've seen already the play on the word Or Haganuz, the Sodot, secrets, whatever that's embedded within it, the vav and all of that. Very interesting. Whatever. Remember, we just said over here. I didn't mention it, but something you should think. Remember, we're saying or is 207, Raz is 207, which is the secret, and of course, the Or HaGanuz are the Sodot, which are the secrets, of course, of the Torah, and that, of course, is that which is embedded in the vav, in the letter vav. Letter vav, okay, is metaphoric, of course, for Torah, vav by vav, 6 by 6, numeric value, which are the 6 tvachim, the measurements of the luchos. But also, if you take the letter vav, which is, again, metaphorically the Torah, of which the secrets are actually embedded, within there, the letter vav also, go ahead and expand it. Vav, you say vav is vav, aleph, vav. You say the word vav, you said it's vav, aleph, vav. If you take the letter vav, aleph, vav, you have vav, which is 6, and then you have vav, aleph, which is the next part, which is vav, aleph, which is 7. Vav plus aleph is 7, 6, and then you have 7 is 13, and then you have vav, aleph, vav, which is 13. So you add them all up, you get 26. What is 26? The numerical value of what? Everybody, I'm waiting for your 26. Is numerical value of, yes, that's correct, God's name, Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey, which is the number 26. That meaning Vav, actually in Torah, there is this kind of an identity between that which we're looking for over here and the Kadosh Baruch Hu itself. The answer is, of course, there's no question about it, because ultimately speaking, we're talking about Yira. Okay, the notion of Yira, the notion of the Sodot, that was just contracted into the Torah. Absolutely. Everybody get that? Hello? Thank you. Hashem, that's correct. Right. I'm sorry I didn't actually see it down there. Good. Yes, that's true. That's true. Very good. Everybody's with me. Okay, good. Now, okay, how? What's the mechanism for doing this? Of raising the year, b'vchinas mishpat. This is with the aspect of mishpat. 3 different psukim. In the meantime, you can use the JPS. You can use the GPS. That's okay. You'll be able to get the points over here. Again, we would like something that has also Hebrew and English translations that are there. If you're not able to read the Hebrew yourself, you should have a translation together with it. But the point of it is, what I want you to do oftentimes, and over here we need to do it, is to read, because here we only have little segments of the psukim that Rav Nachman pulls out over here, okay? He just pulls out of there. We don't necessarily see the entire pasuk. We don't see necessarily the context in which the pasuk, and as a result of that, we can, as it were, miss out on a lot of what it is that Rav Nachman is saying. I'm not saying that we're going to do that on every single verse that Rav Nachman talks, but very, very often it becomes extremely important. Okay, and sometimes over here we're going to do. He's now referring to land. Melech b'mishpat yamid aretz. The king, by means of mishpat, will establish the land. In other words, that it will cause the land, the nation, the place itself to be established very firmly. It says the eretz hu b'chinas yira. Land is an aspect of yira. Really? Land is an aspect of Yira, Kamosha Kasuf. Now he's going to go and prove that by a pasuk in Tehillim on 76. Take a look at that verse. We have all the verses that are enumerated. We have this extremely well edited version of this, okay, which is the research on Likkutei Moharan, which I strongly recommend to everyone because it's an excellent work and gives us an enormous amount of information. And thank goodness that we're able to have all of these tools at our disposal to being able to understand it. There's an education, a massive education that one is able to get by studying these particular works and just learning the annotations and the edited aspects of them, which are extremely important. And then what we'll do is we'll try to augment all of that and put it all together. Okay, good. Hainu sheyishbot es kol asokov. So Rav Nachman says, what does it mean? Is that by means of mishpat, the land, the realm, as it were, is established by the king. Yishbot es kol asokov. That a person also, in terms, in order to establish and to give permanence to himself and to his being and to his possessions and all that. He says he needs to be able to render judgment. He has to judge all of his actions, Kamoshe Kosev, like it says in the verse, Yechalkel devarav b'mishpat. He conducts his affairs with judgment. That's what the person does. Hainu sheyishbot v'yodin ba'atzmo kol asokah. Right? He needs to judge himself and to evaluate all of his actions. I was just thinking of whether we should read that particular point or not at this particular verse or not at this stage. I'm about it because I do think it's an important aspect to it. If everybody next week, I'll tell you right now, everyone have access to a Tanakh. Okay, everybody can get that, a Tanakh. And what we'll do is, after you go ahead and go through this, again, this particular point fundamentally is that the fundamental means of being able to elevate fear, use the word fear, I'm talking about fear of God, back to its root, okay, is by means of mishpat. In other words, that's what he calls judgment, self and evaluation of all his actions. A person has to be engaged continuously in a process of self-judgment in order to be able to improve. Okay, number one, to make sure that he is on the right path. Number two, to correct that which he's doing wrong. And three, to be able to go ahead and take an inventory and a close examination of everything that he's doing. It's not something that's done once a year, once a month. This is something which is an inherent part of the daily hisbodedut process, is to be able to engage in this process of self-examination. Okay, now, which is also the case over here, is that process of self-examination, self-judgment that the person engages in also is very beneficial in terms, in other words, is that if you have a particular aspect of something that you're doing or facility or a skill that you would like to hone, what you do is you practice it, go over and over and over again. You get much better at this process by continuously engaging in this examination, this self-analysis of yourself. And what you do in the process of this analysis is that you expand your own self-awareness. You're continuously looking at yourself and seeing what you're doing, and you're able to gather in much more about what you are and who you are and what you're doing and what's going on all about you. In other words, what you're doing is your self-awareness and self-consciousness. Now he says like this, continuing. Let's go on to the next page. Turn to the next page. Okay, next page. Here we are. Uvaze yosir me'elov kol Mean self, kol hapchodim, all of these fears. What he's talking about fears, it's basically a pachad is those things which frighten him, those things which actually frightened him, those things which we would call that lowest element of fear, that one has. Says the process of self-examination, in other words, is first and foremost, it removes these unnecessary, illegitimate fears that a person has involving himself and about his life. He says, "V'yala bechinas yira bornikia," and that enables, basically freeing yourself, liberating yourself from unrealistic, unwarranted fear, enables real, true fear of God, to come out. It doesn't have to eat against that which is much more mundane, basic, and unrealistic. You can have a cleaner, clear, pure fear that's able to emerge. That which remains as a result of stripping away all of this base fear that's not realistic. He remains with only true yiras Hashem. Now, next thing is the case like this. This is something you should be aware of. It says like this: when a person does not actually engage in this self-judgment and self-evaluation, okay, that judgment does take place, but it doesn't take place from you. It takes place from above. Is that there is an evaluation that comes from above. As it says, in ein din lamato yesh din lamala. Devarim Rabbah, it says if there is no judgment below, there is judgment above. So in other words, there is an evaluative judgment and as well as a sentencing that takes place from above. And when this judgment of the person takes place from above, then judgment, din, okay, is then clothed. I wouldn't use the word disguised, but the din then becomes clothed in all different types of things, in all things. And then what ends up happening is everything within creation then are made into effectively agents, messengers, and agents, in other words, exacting this judgment upon this person. It says, like the rabbis said in the Gemara, in the Darim, Lemishpatecha omdu, to your judgments they were steadfast, and thus Hazaya kol avodecha lasos din b'zeha adam. Okay, everything exists because it is of a Kadosh Baruch Hu, created by a Kadosh Baruch Hu, there to do the will of Kadosh Baruch Hu. Everything continues to exist by Kadosh Baruch Hu's will as well. So in other words, what is going to be happening over here, you see something that is very clear. What Rav Nachman is saying is that he's encouraging everyone to engage in the self-examination and self-judgment. Okay. Now, there is a positive side of that, which we've gone into, in terms of the benefits that accrue to the individual as a result of it. But there's a negative aspect that one wants to avoid as a result of engaging in self-examination, and that is you don't want by that which is above. In other words, there has to be din, there must be mishpat. It has to be. Okay. The question is, who's going to go ahead and administer? Are you going to do it, and as a result, rectify that which needs to be rectified, or are you going to go ahead and rely upon judgment from above, in which everything within creation effectively does the will of the Kadosh Baruch Hu, and then is engaged in a process of examination for you? I think what Rav Nachman is saying over is an interesting idea for sure, and that is that there is this notion of rectitude that's built into creation. There is an inherent balance which does take place within the creation. In other words, it's built with its own mechanisms of rectification. It's almost like, the way that the human body has the capability of fighting of disease and sickness and germs and things of that sort, even if it's left to its own devices, it's got its capability of balancing things out. So such is the case when it comes to injustice, things which are not correct, which get out of kilter, whatever, of balancing, of self-balancing that takes place, even necessarily without Kadosh Baruch Hu actually in and of himself coming and sitting in judgment of the individual. Because the Kadosh Baruch Hu makes the world the way that he makes it, it is de facto a Kadosh Baruch Hu who is in judgment of all of us at all times, because that's, in fact, the way the creation is made. So Rav Nachman is saying is that you, the individual, have the capability of actually jumping ahead and cutting off this self-balancing, activity of creation by means of your own judgment. If you go ahead and you rectify that which, in fact, you've gone ahead and ruined or broken or something of that sort, you don't have to rely upon what might be the very, very harsh mechanism of the inherent rectification of creation, which Kadosh Baruch Hu says is, in fact, which we're saying is his judgment, okay, which might be very, very difficult. Everything which is within creation is there to affect this judgment because it's part of this balance which is built into creation. At some point in time, everything will be balanced out by means of the creation itself. Everything is built with this din. Creation is rooted in din, within judgment. We'll get into that next week when we start talking a little bit more about the ideas we are talking right here. So Rav Nachman is giving you, first of all, a piece of advice. When I say you, I'm talking about us. And that is, it's like, do yourself a favor, okay? You're the one to correct your mistakes and to correct that which you have broken. Do not rely upon this inherent judgment, as it were, that will be imposed from on high, because it will come, that is for sure, and it might not be as something to your liking. Go ahead and make sure it's you that does it. That is number one on a very, very basic level. Then on number two, the idea of what you gain from this process of self-judgment and self-analysis and self-rectification that you have the possibility of doing is enormous, is absolutely enormous. Because not only do you rectify that which you've done wrong, but you then have the capability of in looking at yourself and expanding and sharpening your self-awareness and expanding your consciousness, all of which ultimately leads to greater amounts of Yiras Hashem, awareness of the Creator, okay, and greater awareness of the Creator then itself reflexively enables the individual to be much more careful and mindful and conscious of that which he is doing every step of his way, every minute of his day. Okay, that's what's here that we've talked about this so far. Now he says, Aval, we're right over here at this stage. Right here, Aval. Aval, kishashofet esatzmo. Din lamato, ein din lamato. But if a person does engage in this judgment, this self-judgment, then there is no judgment above. There's no need. There's no need for there to be judgment above. Said, and then there is no need for there to be any kind of awakening, any kind of a wake-up call to be ministered externally. to the individual. Why? Ki hu ba'atzmo nitorer, because he himself has gone ahead up. He himself has taken he's taken steps by his own self-examination and analysis to make sure that he rectifies that which he's done wrong. He says, V'zehu, and this is what is written in Tehillim, right up above there. It says, V'som derech, mi shesom orchosov, and he shall puts right, he places the judgment, the way. He places right, evaluates his way. I'd like you to look at this Tehillim, which is number 50, Tehillim number 50. The last of the it's the last part of that psalm, verse number 23. But look at the context of all of this. You want to read this entire psalm through and get the idea of what it is that Rav Nachman is drawing into this Torah over here, okay, from this particular Tehillim. We'll talk about that more next week. Here he says he's showing that what David HaMelech is an individual who puts right his way. In other words, what he's the person who engages in self-evaluation of all of his ways. In other words, that he judges the way that he acts. Hainu sheshofet orchosov. He judges his path, in other words, the way that he acts. He evaluates everything. Kemoshe Kosuv, like the verse says in Tehillim, it says in Shmos, Ve'elu mishpatim asher tasim. These are the mishpatim which you shall place. Sim, the same word over here. The sum there, you mishpatim. Now, I'm going to leave you with this one idea over here, and we will then be up to top of page, which is the next page, 346, right over here. Okay, that's will be the Elu Mishpatim Asher Tasim Lifonecho. Mishpat. Okay, we keep on using the term mishpat, judgment, self-judgment, judgment from above, all of that. That's a very, very important word, mishpat. Okay, and we'll go into that next week, but just keep that in mind. Make a note over that, mishpat. One of the things that we need to be talking about, and anyone who's learned with me before will know that this is what I like to highlight over here. Rav Nachman, in terms of his style of teaching, of learning, works on two major levels. In other words, what he does is that he will show, as is in fact the basic principle as follows, is that since man is the epicenter of creation, man is the objective and the purpose of all of creation, and all of creation is there as part and parcel of man and for man. Therefore, the mechanisms and the processes which HaKadosh Baruch Hu used in the creation, are somehow mirrored and echoed within the ways of man, the way that man works, functions, conducts himself, his mechanism, the way that he's made up psychologically, emotionally, even physically. There is a mirror, there's some type of a mirror between the human and the cosmic, between the terrestrial and that which is cosmic, which precedes time, which is beyond time, which is continuously something which is outside of our existence, but it's always to be here. And oftentimes the Kabbalistic principles that Rav Nachman wants to illustrate, he either talks about them outright and then shows how they are mirrored, again, as I said, on this humanistic, type of way, or what he does is he goes into a discussion of man, of a basic humanistic issue, like he is talking right now, and all the while there are allusions to, again, what effectively are very, very deep, complex Kabbalistic principles. Again, because the two of them in Kabbalah Kabbalah go hand in hand. So you might think you're being given a very nice and very, very useful advice in terms of how to conduct yourself and to conduct your life. All the while, you may not be realizing it, is that this advice and this conduct actually is illustrative of very profound cosmic workings all the time. Great Kabbalistic principles are at play. We're going to have to deal with the issue of mishpat, the notion of the yira, the notion of the das. All of these things, echo in terms of the Kabbalistic principles, that are at play here, and we'll go into them. Rav Nachman himself will start bringing them up at some point in time, but we will go back and forth through. We have 7 or so sessions together, so we'll be able to go into them, to the degree that we possibly can. I think that our time is over at this point. It was very, very nice of us to be together over here. Thank you very, very, very much. I appreciate that, and thank you very, very much, Yoshua and Sandra and Lee. Thank you very, very much, everybody. And again, the course of the week. Number one, go through the lessons, and start listening to the words. Take a look at the Tehillim, listen to the context of the verse, expand the verse, see what it's talking about, and then how it is being used and placed by Rav Nachman. Most importantly, we want to start doing to a much greater degree, if we're not doing it already, and that is, of course, this self-examination and self-judgment that Rav Nachman is talking about, all with the idea, ultimately, first and foremost, of these fears, these baseless fears, don't mean anything, to allow true Yiras Hashem to start coming up. But most important, to engage in this self-rectification. We want to do it ourselves. We don't want to allow the self-balancing mechanism of the universe to do it for us. It might be a little bit harsh. But anyway, everybody have a wonderful Yiras Hashem. We'll learn together again next week. Take care.